The true wealth transformation is an 8-step trademark process that I have used for thousands of clients to totally transform their financial situation so they will not outlive their money. In this educational episode, I'm going to introduce you to that 8-step process, which is actually the missing structure. So I'm Doug Andrew, and I've been helping people optimize assets and minimize taxes now for 5 decades. And I'm very passionate about educating people like you on the best way to save for retirement. I have a ditty that I've used for years: good, better, best, never let it rest. Never let it rest till good gets better and better gets best, okay? Putting money in traditional IRAs or 401ks used to be maybe a good way to go. Actually, I think it's poor now, but it's a far cry from the best way. The best way is to accumulate your money totally tax-free and be able to access that money tax-free. And when you die, whatever you leave behind blossoms and transfers income tax-free. I'm not talking about a Roth. I'm talking about my favorite financial instrument, a properly structured, maximum funded, indexed universal life insurance laser fund. And so I'm going to gift you a copy of this book at the end of this episode, and you can learn more about this. But let me outline this missing structure that I referred to. So when we look at the vast majority of Americans, I like to use this diagram where 95% of Americans are sort of in captivity, and they don't even know it until they retire and they realize the 3 big dangers that are going to cause them to outlive their money: taxes, inflation, and market volatility. And that's because they've been following the herd, putting money in traditional IRAs or 401ks, being told, oh, you'll likely be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. And then they get there and they're not in a lower bracket. And they realize that they have to pull out 50% more money in a 33% tax bracket to have the net spendable amount of money to buy gas and groceries, prescriptions, and golf green fees. Meaning, if you had $1 million nest egg, and if it was earning 10%, and most people aren't earning 10% in retirement, but you could theoretically pull out $100,000 a year and not deplete your million, right? Well, if you need a net of $100,000 sooner than later because of inflation, in other words, in less than 5 years, in my opinion, $100,000 a year in income will only buy what 50,000 buys today. And so people, they have to pull out more money. But if you have to pay tax on that and you need a net, you have to pull out $150,000 in a 33% bracket, 50% more, pay tax of $50,000 to have a net of $100,000. Do you know that $1 million nest egg will be gone, drained dry in 11 years? I can show you how to use a laser fund and be able to generate $100,000 a year of tax-free income into perpetuity. It will last 20, 30 years. I'm talking about not just $1 million better, 10 more years of $100,000, but 20 and 30 years. Would you like to have a retirement strategy that is $2 or $3 million better than the same amount of money in a traditional IRA or 401k? Yeah, I thought so. And so you need to break away from this group and move into what we call the top 5%. These people have tremendous freedom. They arrive at what I call the land of peace and abundance. Many of them, with the same resources, accumulate retirement nest eggs that are double, triple, quadruple, or even if the nest egg is only double what they could have achieved, it will generate 4 times the cash flow or income because it's tax-free, and we're able to actually earn rates of return upwards to 8, 9, 10%, where in the financial services industry, these people down here, they're told to use the 4% rule. They only want you to pull out 4%. On $1 million nest egg, that would be $40,000 a year. I mean, I don't know if you're like me, but I don't save $1 million to have a measly $40,000, and that's before tax. In a 25% tax bracket, you're only netting $30,000 to buy gas and groceries. If you subtract the 1% asset management fees, you're only netting 2% or $20,000. I can use a laser fund, and I can generate easily $80,000. How much more is $80,000 than $20,000? We're talking about a retirement strategy these people understand that gave them 4 times the income, okay? And so the missing structure between all of these is really explained in my book, The Laser Fund. This is how to diversify and create the foundation for a tax-free retirement. And I'm going to show you how you can claim a copy of this 300-page book to get these insights. But in the book, you're going to learn about a process that I took many of my clients through to get them to move from being a striver to an arriver to a thriver. So let's talk about the difference here of these strivers, arrivers, and thrivers. The strivers are those who represent, the masses. They usually have too much month left at the end of their money. They are told to, cut up their credit cards and act their wage, and they're financial jellyfish, as described by a lot of the advisors you see on CNBC. They don't call them financial jellyfish on TV, but behind closed doors they do. I've heard them. So those are the strivers. Now, the arrivers, they understand the three marvels of wealth accumulation: compound interest, tax-free compounding, and safe positive leverage, which is the ability to own and control assets with very little or none of your money tied up or at risk in that asset. Okay. Now, arrivers, simply put, are those who go out and they learn how to earn interest. Okay. They live on less than what they earn. And they sock it away, but it's sort of like a one-off plan. The strivers, every time they try to save money, they go to an RV boat show and they all of a sudden buy a depreciating asset, a new boat, and they put off saving. They want to live in the moment and not sacrifice for a brighter future. So strivers pay interest, simply put. Arrivers earn interest. But when we're talking about how money works and the banking concept, there's a third category of people, the thrivers. These thrivers are different than the arrivers because they repeat the process. It's not a one-off. If they were real estate investors, they don't just own one rental property. They keep leveraging with liquidity and have multiple properties. These are the ones that don't have one laser fund. They end up adding a new laser fund every 3 to 5 years because their wealth keeps expanding and they need more room. And so many of my thriver clients, they end up with 6, 8, 10, 12. I have one guy that has 17 laser funds. And so they diversify and they have a nice problem. They have more money. So what is the difference between these traditional, people that are in captivity? These are the strivers. These are the thrivers. Well, the arrivers are in between here. And I love taking people from here up to here up to here. But this is a missing structure I explain in my book, but it's an 8-step process that's very predictable. So let me go through this process with you here. Years ago, when I put this process down on one 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, I would print it out on 80-pound cardstock and laminate it. And people loved it because they could see on one sheet of paper the process of a transformation financially. And it wasn't just about the money. We call this 3 dimensions of authentic wealth because it's more than the money. It's the relationships, the heritage, your values, your beliefs. See, we believe it's more important that values are understood before the assets are valued. Then they can be brought into balance and harmony to provide ever-increasing results. So in this 8-step process, the very first step in this transformation is what we call the enlightenment experience. Frankly, it's getting it, okay? A lot of people never do get it. And so that depends upon how you like to learn. Some people like to read and learn. Some like to watch and learn. Some like to listen and learn. Some like all the above. I use all the above. And so I've created educational videos, over 1,100 on my YouTube channel, for those people who like to watch and learn. Others who like to listen and learn, they can listen to the audio or podcasts. Those who like to read and learn, I have 12 books thus far that you can dive in and you can read and reread instead of pushing rewind or whatever. However you like to learn, I do all 3 of those in order to really cement in and get the enlightenment. But that's the first step of the process. Now, in a nutshell, when people would come in and meet with me or now a certified IUL specialist, we have this fact-finding appointment, but I call it a true wealth discovery interview because I'm asking questions that involves their true wealth, not just their money. I want to know what makes them tick. Why do they get up every day? Who is most important to them? What's most important to them? What do they want to accomplish before they leave this world and so forth? See, I want to know what makes them tick so that I can bring their financial goals into balance and harmony with who they are. Now, once I find that out, then we have backstage working, and sometimes this takes hours, where I create what is called a strategic design. These are usually several scenarios, and the very first one I always do is showing people if they did not increase their outlay one dime, not one penny, how much better off they could be 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road, and if they live to be 120, how much more income, how much better off they would be if they would just reposition current assets, optimize their existing assets without increasing their outlay. Just reposition them into a better way to increase liquidity, safety, rates of return, and the tax benefits. And I show them that strategic design, and they're blown away. They realize they've been missing out, that they could have double or triple the net spendable income without increasing their outlay one dime. Now, usually the second illustration is if it's short of their goals and staying ahead of inflation, then I say, I'll throw in some additional savings that I think you ought to incorporate to make sure you never outlive your money and you stay ahead of the cost of living increase or inflation. And they're very interested in seeing my calculation on that. And then there's all kinds of other illustrations and what ifs. But that's where I get together and I show them their success formula. And I love to make sure there's flexibility, because life is full of curved balls and you have to be flexible so that if they have a banner year, they can put in a lot of money. If not, they don't have to put in any money and they can make up for it anytime in the future. So that's called the success formula. And then I have them sort of digest that and text me and email me questions. I don't like it to get rusty. So usually this is about a week between here and the refinement process where I tweak it. And then we get together about 7 days later and we arrive at their final action blueprint. Then we go through an implementation experience where we reposition the assets to increase liquidity, safety, rate of return, and tax benefits. We fill out applications to see if they can get approved for a laser fund, maybe more than one, and maybe put some of them on their spouse or adult children or what have you to diversify. And then I implement all of this and we begin repositioning assets. And then what happens? We get together for an annual review. And I think I need to answer 3 questions. What have I done to create value for you and your family during the last year? What do I intend to do to create value for you and your family during the next year? And what makes our firm unique and why should you continue to do business with that? Now, I think I should be accountable and answer those questions. Well, I like clients to be accountable to their plan. I want to know if there's any changes. Do we have more money? Do you have more children? What changes have happened with health and everything like that? And then we can accommodate it and either eliminate room or add room to their existing plan so that we stay current to achieve the goals, okay? Because life is full of curveballs. And so that's what I do. I want them to be accountable to their plan so that we can keep it tweaked. Well, that's the 8-step process. I learned a long time ago from Dr. Edwards Deming, who is the total quality management engineer that transformed Japan to the quality they put out today compared to when I was a kid. Anything made in Japan was junk or cheap. And so the big 3 automobile manufacturers, Ford, GM, and Chrysler, they laughed at him when he said, you're not going to be the big 3 someday. And so he went over to Japan and he said, you're the laughing stock of the world. And what happened? Toyota, Honda, and Nissan became the big 3. And then Ford, GM, and Chrysler were begging Deming to come back. And because he was in charge of predictable systems, and they didn't have systems in the factories, okay? The best cars came off the assembly lines on Wednesdays. Because people came to work on Mondays, they had hangovers. There was no quality checks. And Tuesdays, the cars were better, but the best cars came off the assembly lines on Wednesday. And then Thursdays, the car, it was like a big bell curve. And a consumer report came out in the 1970s that revealed that. And so people only wanted to look at cars to buy at dealerships that were built in Detroit on Wednesdays. You can imagine they had to drastically discount automobiles that were built on Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursdays and Fridays, or it had to be sent back and gone over, or else they couldn't sell them. And Deming predicted all of that. So here's what Deming taught us, is that 85% of any successful result you want, okay, let's say this process, is determined in the first 15% of the process. It took me 3 years to get that. I don't want it to take you 3 years. The first 15% of this process is getting it. It's the enlightenment experience. So may I suggest that You tackle the first 15% and the rest will fall into place like dominoes. What you need to do is you need to get enlightened, claim a copy of my book, The Laser Fund, and then there's audio formats, there's video formats, but I want you to understand these concepts so that you can implement them and know how to make decisions and be your own fiduciary. There's only one person that looks out for your best interest better than some fiduciary, and that's you. And you ought to be your own fiduciary. And so claim a free copy of my book right now. Simply go to laserfund.com or click on the link below. And when you go in there, I have you contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I require a little bit of skin in the game. But I'll cover the rest of that cost and I'll pay for the book. I'll fire out a hard copy to you via priority mail. But while you're in there claiming your free copy, if you like to listen and learn or watch and learn, check out the audio and video formats. We have educational webinars that we teach weekly. They're free, but you can even schedule an appointment with an IUL, a certified professional that can show you how these strategies may apply in your particular set of circumstances with no cost or obligation. You ought to take advantage of that. And you want to have it done by somebody who knows what they're doing. Believe me, okay? So start now in this 8-step process. I want to see a transformation in your life, especially financially, but it all begins with getting it, by getting enlightened.